is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Unspoiled, covering The Dark Tower, Book 5, Wolves of the Calla, Part 2, Chapter 7, Todash. In this chapter, I feel so bad that Susannah gets her legs back and loses them within the same 10 minutes. Welcome to Unspoiled. Oh, that was rough. That was mean to do.
Yeah.
I don't like you, Steven, sometimes. You'd be a real bastard. Well, just be I know what I'll do. I'll think of the one thing she wants back more than anything in the world and give it to her for approximately 8 minutes and 40 seconds.
I mean, that's where drama comes from.
It's like horrible.
If books were like, I'm going to give my characters what they want, and then they get to keep it, and they're happy. The end. Like, well, okay.
Yeah.
I could have written that.
What's wrong with that, Miles? Nothing.
It's not dramatic. There's no conflict.
I just being able to think of something like that is just getting in this headspace of just how cruel can I be?
Sure.
That I just am not prepared for, you know?
Yeah.
Welcome to the show, everyone. I'm Natasha.
I'm Miles.
And everybody, please forgive Miles if he's like 2 or 3 or 7 beats slower than usual. Because he's on a really terrible diet that has robbed him of his excitement and zest for life.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I mean, not the rob of excitement and zest for life thing, but the terrible diet thing is factually correct. I am eating basically fish and vegetables, and that's it. So that's essentially the type of diet that I'm on right now. And I was apologizing earlier for being I think a little bit of a grump on the Game of Thrones podcast, patrons only, last night. So. We got to the end of the show and I was just like, fucking hate everything. I know that when we talk about Game of Thrones, that's a little bit more usual for me, but I think it was beyond the pale even then. But this series is
we got to a point where I was like, no, we get it, Miles. No, we know. You just said.
I kept trying to talk.
we hung up and Miles was just like, you could just cut all that.
Yeah.
Nobody needs to hear that.
It's fucking garbage.
Oh, dear.
Oh, boy. No, I have not eaten real food in a week. I haven't smoked cigarettes in over a week.
Wow.
And I haven't had any alcohol in a week. So
that's the one that I'm real shocked by. That's the one that I'm like, oh, whoa. You all right there, buddy? I'm keeping an eye on you.
So if I just snap for some reason and you just hear the sounds of me running, screaming into the night, then you'll know why. Gentle listener.
I hear the sound of a bottle breaking and the weird lapping sound. Is he on the floor lapping that broken bottle of whiskey off of the floorboards? I think that's what's happening. Groans of pleasure. Oh, anyway. Miles, your tongue is bleeding. I don't care.
I don't care.
Oh, God. So, this is book 2, which is titled Todash. And this is chapter 7, which is also titled Todash. So we are in Todash : Todash.
That's right. I think
Todash to the second power.
I think it's part 1, though, Natasha.
I thought part 1 was Root, wasn't it?
That was a prologue. That was just prologue. That's not part 1.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I'm looking at, like, the, where it's written up in the upper right corner at the beginning, and I thought that was, but yeah, you're right, that's just the prologue. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So, but it's still Todash : Todash.
Right.
So.
And for anyone who's brand new, I have read this book before. I have also read the 4 previous books and the next book, and I'm currently making my way through book 7. So,
Dun, dun, dun.
Almost done with that. Natasha has never read these books before, and neither of us have seen the movie, and at least in my case, don't plan on it. So,
I was going to say, did you see the movie? Because it has been panned.
It has gotten universally terrible reviews.
Yeah. So, I'm gonna see it. I don't care how bad it is. It's got Idris Elba in it, looking hot as fuck, shooting guns. Of course I'm gonna see it.
That's legit.
Don't be crazy. But, I'll wait until the series is over, even though, as I hear, it has basically nothing to do with the series, but still. I'm sure that there are some, low-key spoilers in there that will probably, I'll be able to extrapolate from, so I'm just going to avoid it until the end. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure there are. At least that's my guess, because of the way they tried to do it, which makes no fucking sense to me. If you, seriously, if you want your story to be about Roland, Jake, and the Man in Black, then just adapt the fucking Gunslinger. It's not hard. It's a really easy book to adapt to a movie.
It's really weird that they're not handling it that way. Because not only is it weird just, story-wise, but you would think a movie that's based on a series as well-known as this would be wanting to do everything it could to draw that shit out.
Yeah.
This is the kind of thing that you could see it being turned into 8 movies instead of 7 because they split the final book in half. That's the exact kind of series that I expect them to do that kind of thing with, and they didn't, which baffles me.
Apparently there's supposed to be a TV show too?
Oh yeah, that's happening.
And then the movie was ambiguous about whether or not it was setting up a sequel, so I don't know what they're doing. I mean this was a movie that reportedly was fucking plagued in production. There's a reason it came out as late as it did.
Mm-hmm.
So I suspect there were competing visions of it.
Right.
So, who knows? But I don't know.
There should be competing visions because this is such a wild series that I could definitely understand that. But the fact that those two visions, however competing they were, did not universally agree, this is way too big a story for one movie, is just crazy. That should be the only thing that you agree on at the very least.
Yeah, exactly. But, and the Gunslinger is so nice and bite-sized. It's just make a little... Just make a little trippy movie, it's a little desert fever dream, the way the book is, and then go from there, I don't know.
Yep. Yeah, and it's like you said, it's a simple story, but it still has some high octane, really intense sequences in it.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's the perfect intro. I don't know. Agreed.
Yeah, I feel like there's some shit that studios wouldn't want in there, but I don't think it'd be that easy. I don't think it'd be that hard to change some of those things and still stay basically true to the story. So. Anyway.
Agreed.
Let's talk about this book here, this chapter.
Yeah.
That I've read before, and that you haven't until now.
So, when we start off here, Eddie and Roland are both talking about how odd it is that all the wolves ride in on gray horses. Always. All of them have gray horses, and yet... these people who live in this community who raise horses don't seem to notice what a weird thing that is.
Yeah, they just take it super, in stride.
Yeah. And they talk about this for a while to the point where they both just start laughing, which is sort of weird. I feel like I missed something here. Do you know what I mean? I feel like there was like an inside joke that I kind of like. I'm like, did I miss it? What? But they're laughing more because of like how much they're chewing this over, right? They're not laughing because they know clearly what's happening here and nobody else does.
Am I
wrong?
I think that's accurate. That's what it
Okay.
seems like to me. I think they're just like, yep, fucking gray horses.
Horses.
It's like one of those things where if you say the same word over and over again long enough, it just becomes funny. You know?
I know I've asked you, but have you listened to Complete Guide to Everything, that podcast?
Yes. Not a whole lot of it, but I have.
There was an episode, an old one that I was listening to, where Tom thinks that Tim is about to say apartment, but instead Tim says appointment, and Tom's like, wait, what? and then the whole rest of it, they're talking like, I went to my appointment and we played some stickball out in the street outside of my appointment. And it gets so that when he keeps trying to go back to his normal voice and say apartment, it sounds weird and he can't like say it right anymore because they've just like said it in this like old 20s, 30s gangster voice for so long that now the right word doesn't sound right anymore.
Nice.
That's what I kind of felt like was happening here, was that they just keep on like saying it over and over until they're just like a little too tickled. I think they need some sleep is what I mean.
Fair enough.
And Eddie is really struggling with this feeling of everything not being quite real. And he has like a moment where basically Roland's like, okay, talk to me as if you're talking to yourself. Like, pretend that you don't have to make this make sense to me.
Right.
Just say to me what you think what this feels like. And Eddie is picking up dirt from the ground and being like, I can feel this and smell this and taste this. It's real. I know it. All my senses say it is. But it's not, though. I know it's not. It feels like I'm still Todash here right now where I am. Mm-hmm. And he points out how it's like really convenient that there's this like, you know, supposedly civilization is all over with, and yet we stumble across this like intact town that seems really homely and familiar. And doesn't that seem strange?
Yeah.
And Roland seems to agree with him on that, but they don't really establish what that means.
Yeah, he says a couple things, looking over this again, stand out to me about Eddie's little spiel here. I love the bit where he thinks to himself, like, everything was wrong, everything, or maybe wrong was the wrong word, and by 180 degrees, because in another way, things seem too right, too perfect, which is basically the same thing, right? Like, if something feels too right, then it feels wrong.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And, yeah, and, you know, the joke is that out here, a billion miles from nowhere, we come upon a storybook town, civilized, decent, the kind of folks you feel you know. Maybe you don't like them all. Overholster's a little hard to swallow, but you feel you know them. And Roland is basically thinking the same thing. Mm-hmm. You know, because he's like, yeah, I'm already thinking that this is Meji's.
Yeah, which is like, that's a pretty significant thing for him to just be like, I'm there already. Like, this is not, Roland doesn't share much, you know, we know that.
Yeah.
So for him to kind of come out and be like, oh yeah, totally weird and creepy, I'm with you. I already been thinking that. I'm just like, oh, I don't like it. If it's only Eddie that feels that way, I can kind of be like, well, maybe Eddie's going through something. If Roland feels it too, I'm like, okay, something's wrong. You know?
Yeah. And Eddie also says that the only time that feeling of unreality goes away is when he's with Susannah. And Roland is like, I should probably tell you about the... No, I'm not going to do it. It's not...
Nope.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah, he doesn't, like... Roland. I'm mad at him still.
He doesn't actually question himself like that. I just feel like he should be.
He should, yeah. If you're putting words in his mouth that, like, the normal human being would feel.
Right.
And Roland starts giving them advice when they're getting ready to go to bed, and he's like, okay, so if you guys, when you go Todash tonight, which you probably will, if one of you goes by yourselves, make sure to stop and stand in the same place for a while, because maybe somebody will be coming and catch up to you. And he's in the middle of, like, saying this, and he's, like, watching them as he says it, and then it says, Roland realized that each one of them was reserving the right to decide what to do when the time came based upon the circumstances, which was exactly right. They were either gunslingers or they weren't, after all.
Yep.
He surprised himself by uttering a brief snort of a laugh. What's so funny? Jake asked. I was just thinking that long life brings strange companions, Roland said. If you mean us, Eddie said, let me tell you something, Roland. You're not exactly Norman normal yourself. Yeah, Eddie.
For sure.
Roland's like, huh, what a bunch of weirdos. Hold on while I go fucking throw my gun with bullets in the blink of an eye before I sleep. But as it turns out, the first one to go Todash this time is Roland, which he was not expecting at all. He is very taken aback by this.
Yeah, and he first has this dream, which is about a place called Jericho Hill and a battle that he fought with Cuthbert, and it is the battle in which Cuthbert died. And we also find out in the stream, well, assuming that this dream is what actually happened, we find out here that Roland and Cuthbert killed Elen by accident.
Which is fucked up.
Yeah.
And something that I wouldn't think could even happen. Because they're gunslingers. You'd think at the very least they would be able to tell when somebody was their friend. Like, that seems like a pretty big mistake.
They must have been. I mean, they must have been at the end of their rope. Like, their nerves must have been totally frayed. Because we know they had this friend named Jamie DeCurry, and he was dead. The sniper got him. This dude, Grisham, whoever they were fighting, and yeah, so they killed Elen. And they just got they're back. Well, I'm trying to figure out, because they're very dreamlike here, but they had to climb this hill because they were running from the forces of Grisham, I think. And Cuthbert got shot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they are backed into, like, their back is to a cliff.
Right.
And their front is to a group of 2,000 men.
Right.
Who are just going to overwhelm them in a second. Like, there's nowhere for them to go. This is the moment that Roland thinks he's going to die.
Right.
Straight up. And we don't know how they get out of this, because as far as it looks like right now, they shouldn't have gone out of this. So, what the fuck? It's my question.
Yeah, and I love this bit. We just, ye of the castle, to me, gunslingers, to me, I say. As for gunslingers, Roland, Cuthbert says, I'm here, and we are the last. Mm-hmm. And then he says, all right, we're going, they're both laughing. And he says, we're going into them, and we will accept no quarter. Nope, no quarter, absolutely none, Cuthbert says. We will not accept their surrender if offered. Under no circumstances, Cuthbert agrees, laughing harder than ever. Not even should all 2,000 lay down their arms and blow that fucking horn.
I love that so much. He's just like, all right, yeah, I'll play along like that's at all a possibility. Sure, why not?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also, there's a note here that Roland forgets about Eld's horn and leaves it there. which
yeah,
is interesting.
I kind of like expect that he's going to find that again at some point in the book, but I'm not sure of the significance of that horn in the first place, so it's not something that I'm like that invested in.
Yeah. I mean, I hear it can bring down the wall, but aside from that, yeah.
Let's talk about some fire reference, guys.
So,
do you have an illustration in your book of him and Cuthbert shooting?
No, my version of Wolves of the Calla does not have illustrations.
Okay, this illustration is super weird because, like, you know how it is when you just see an illustration and you're like, yeah, somebody drew that in the 70s. And there's not really, like, a real good reason to think that. Like, it's just the style of it. And, you know, it's just such a weird... I'll probably use this image for the post for this episode. But it's something that's hard for me to place why I thought that as soon as I saw it. But yeah, it's looks very modern. Like the two of them are basically perched on the edge of a cliff, but they're not like it looks like they're about to like dive into a cave or something. And I can't tell if that's just how I'm interpreting the drawing or if that's what winds up happening. But even if there were a cave there, like Cuthbert is in such bad shape in this scene. His eyeball's literally like flopping around on his cheek. So I don't see Cuthbert getting out anyway. But I feel bad for it because he's a nice guy. He's fun. I like him.
Yeah, well, that's how he died. Anyway, and from that dream, Roland goes Todash and winds up in New York. And he is kind of trying to figure out what to do and where to go. Right. When Susannah shows up and she's got her legs back.
Yay! Oh my god, she's so excited.
She's so happy.
It's really kind of a bummer because like she's so happy, but Roland can tell that there's something like not cool about her happiness. Mm-hmm. And it's like really saddening to me that her joy at this moment is like kind of overshadowed by him being suspicious of her, and knowing the reason that she has her legs is probably because she was so close to being Mia in the moment that she went Todash that Mia manifested the legs because she has them.
Right.
Which is a pretty wild idea, and I really like that.
Well, he actually calls her Mia at one point to see if she'll notice, and she doesn't. One thing I did want to mention is that's just mentioned in this section is when Roland mentions that falling into the patois of the place in which he had lately found himself was an old trick of his, or perhaps it was a habit. For now, it was the patois of the Calla, which we've been seeing, like even his conversation with Eddie, you know, he kind of smirked and was like, "No, tell me, tell me how you're feeling. Do ya, do ya, I beg." And so I just thought interesting note because he does. I think we saw that in Mages, and and it seems like we're seeing it again here.
And I'm trying to think. Oh yeah, when he says. Because, like, he says her name, and in the next chat or the next paragraph, the other name had come out almost, but not quite on its own. So he says it on purpose to a degree, but it's not. He doesn't just say her name. He says, "If you cut your foot, Mia, you'll have a cut foot tomorrow." Which, even if she didn't notice him calling her Mia, she ought to notice that he's implying that tomorrow when she wakes up, she's gonna have feet.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Which is weird.
Like, I can understand her, like, kind of overlooking the name thing, but that is a big thing to just be like, oh, yeah, your foot that doesn't exist is probably going to be cut, so be careful.
Yeah,
like,
which
girl,
she doesn't comment on it at all.
No, not at all. So he asks if she knows where to go to get to the vacant lot or to the Rose.
Or to the bookstore.
And or to the bookstore. And they're standing there looking around trying to like place themselves and figure out where they are. And she's walking barefoot also in New York City, which nobody likes that.
That's where the comment about the cut on her foot comes from, yeah.
Right. But they go to they're walking around, and she starts to notice that it's dark, and not dark like it's dark outside.
Right.
And she points this out, and Roland's like, "Oh, yeah. Well, this is, the 13th ball is black. And
13,
remember
yeah.
that there was a weird pinkness to the, like when we were inside my memory in the grapefruit. And that's probably what we're feeling here is like the blackness. And when she says it feels bad, he says it is bad. Black 13's very likely the most terrible object from the days of Eld still remaining on the face of the earth. Which that is a big fucking thing to say.
Yeah, that's a tall order.
Goddamn.
Yep.
Right?
So this orb is reaching out from the church where Callahan supposedly has it and sending them Todash. Apparently.
Yeah.
And then they meet up with Eddie and Jake and Oi.
Yay! I have to be honest, when she loses her legs and she's alone with Oi, I thought she was going to like do something to hurt him as Mia because she just eats animals raw. I was really afraid. I did not like Oi being left behind with potential Mia.
Oh man, you are just so you are attuned to the moment when Stephen King is gonna fuck up Oi, and you're not.
I
here for
am.
it. I know. I'm not
is
criticizing.
Not to be trusted.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they start walking, and they figure out where the vacant lot's gonna be. And let's see. For Roland, the 8-block journey from 2nd and 54th to 2nd and 46th was like visiting a country in which he had until that moment only half believed. How much stranger must it be for Jake, he wondered. The bum who'd asked the boy for a quarter was gone, but the restaurant he'd been sitting near was there. Choo Choo Mama's. Mm-hmm. This was on the corner of 2nd and 52nd. A block farther down was the record store, Tower of Power. It's blasting music. And he says it reminded him of the sacrificial music played by the Greys back in the city of Lud. And why not? This was Lud. In some twisted other where and when way, he was sure of it. And I'm just like, I don't like that thought at all.
Also, quickly before we move on, Eddie is giving Susannah kind of a look. Mm-hmm. Like, everything okay?
Mm-hmm.
But he lets it go.
Yeah, he can tell
Roland,
all is not well.
Yeah, as Roland knew he would. He lets it go. Yeah. So this being Lud's not the greatest idea.
Then we had that moment where Susannah's like, Jimmy Carter? Is he the president before Ronald Reagan?
Oh my god, I love this so much.
Because she totally doesn't believe that at all. Oh, it's so good.
They can't convince her that Ronald Reagan becomes president, which I can totally relate to because I've actually been I've been listening to some old political podcasts and shit recently. Like I've been listening to some episodes of The Bugle from the 2012 election.
Oh,
and
wow.
They are making fun of Donald Trump so hard.
Yeah.
And I was listening to an episode today where they were talking about how Trump endorsed Romney and how they did a poll among Republicans say that only 10% of them would be positively swayed by a Trump endorsement and 20% would be negatively swayed by a Trump endorsement.
Wow. Yeah, I was listening to, again, Complete Guide to Everything, and Tim is saying, you know what I love about Donald Trump is how quick he goes from zero to scorched earth. And it's hilarious because in 2 weeks he's going to drop out because he's a laughingstock. And I'm listening to it just like, oh God, we all thought it was a joke. Yep. I feel ya.
Yeah, that happened.
So,
anyway, before I go dragging this shit back down into depression again, let's move on.
Up. So every minute we spend on the other side, the Calla side, a minute and a half goes by over here, or maybe 2. No, not 2, Eddie said. I'm sure it's not going double time. But his uneasy glance back down at the date on the newspaper suggested he wasn't sure at all. That's unwelcome news. And then later, Susan loses extra time. So there's the suggestion that either time is going double time, or because of the way that she loses time, that it just slips ahead sometimes.
Right.
So
it's always one of my favorite
not exactly
things.
like, right? It's like, it's not a measurable thing like, 2 minutes to 1 minute. It's an unpredictable thing, which is much worse because then you just like pop back in and who knows how the fuck much time has gone by, which is sort of how it is in like the Narnia stories.
Yeah.
It's like, they'll come back and they'll think they know approximately how much time has gone by, and they're not right a lot of the time.
There's an episode of Star Trek Voyager called Blink of an Eye that I really love that kind of plays with this. I read a lot of shit and consume a lot of media that does this, and it's just one of my favorite things. I love like time moving faster over there than it does over here. You know. Mm-hmm.
It's just like, it's all like, now I have that song in my head. Time keeps on slipping, slipping, slipping into the future. Yeah. Oh my God.
Steve Miller Band, man. That was on the first album that I ever bought.
Really?
Yep. Steve Miller Band, Greatest Hits.
My first album that I ever bought was Jock Jam's 15.
Yeah.
Yep, and it had what the hell is that song? Holy shit, I just got scared to death. There's a gecko crawling up my my window.
We were both having vermin issues
me
tonight.
It's outside, but I was just like, what the fuck is that? I think it's been drawn to my window because there are a bunch of moths trapped over here, so it's like, hey, dinner. So let's see. It'll be better at the vacant lot, Jake says. He started walking and the others followed. The rose makes everything better, you'll see. And after he says that, they're getting closer, and then Jake starts to sprint, and then they all start to sprint because they're like, oh, fuck yeah, we're almost there.
Yep.
And they're each smelling something that makes them feel reassured and like everything is going to be okay. And I really like this sequence a lot.
Yeah.
What would be your thing that you smelled?
God, I don't know. Like a smell that reassures me.
Mm-hmm. A smell that like you associate with a memory of just feeling safe and content, like not worried.
So I can't really. My sense of smell is terrible, and I don't usually associate things with the way they smell. Just because it's not a very strong sense for me. But if the most accurate answer I can give right now is probably my wife. I mean, Sharon has a specific smell, at least to me she does, and I definitely associate that with safeness and comfort. So, yeah.
So yours is a really like new smell because you only met her within the past few years.
Well, no, I met her.
Theirs are all like old memories.
I met her when I was 15, but we only got together a couple of years ago.
That's what I said. You only met her again within the past few years, and like the first time you didn't have that kind of feeling around her, so it wouldn't have meant anything to you, right? Like,
right. Yeah, I don't know what it would be because like I don't know, like sounds and sights and tastes even, but smells I just don't have a very strong sense of that. My sense of smell is atrocious. Like I can't smell anything. What about you?
Yeah, Owen kind of has that because he works in with a lot of chemicals, and so his sense of smell is shot. Like it's just not as good as mine. So a lot of times things that bother me, he doesn't even know are there. which can be kind of bad because he likes to smoke cigars. So he won't realize like how strongly he smells of them after he's smoked. Things like that.
Yeah, I think I smoked cigarettes for so long that I think that really damaged my sense of smell.
Okay, yeah, that's a bad one.
But what about you? What would it be?
Probably. There's a memory that I have of when I was like maybe 7 or 8, and it was Christmas morning, and there was coffee perking on the stove, and my mom she always made this walnut cinnamon bread for Christmas morning, and she would roll the dough out, stuff it full of walnuts and cinnamon and sugar, and then cover the dough over in like a giant pocket, then slice that big wad of dough into 3 pieces and braid it, and then pop it in the oven so that there were these like streaks of cinnamon and nuts that would show when it was braided.
Sure.
And that smell plus the coffee plus this pine incense that she would burn that smells just like wood smoke. Just like wood smoke. It's the best. I still buy it. And it's the kind of thing that you know, those little things that you're like, oh yeah, I'm with the right person. Yeah. I would burn that, and Brendan would be like, oh, that's really nice, you know. And I burned that with Owen, and he's like, oh, that smell just calms me right down. Like, he has a kind of reaction to it that's similar to what I have. So I think it's the combination of cinnamon, and what kills me is that I didn't realize that I was trying to recreate that. But the other day, Owen was talking about that when I burned that wood smoke incense, the last time that he really got an impression of it was Christmas morning, and I was opening the oven where I had been making fresh cinnamon rolls. And so it was a mix of the cinnamon and that incense. And so he now has that kind of association that I do. But it's like I did it to him, which is kind of funny.
Right.
But I don't like regular coffee. So that's the only thing, is that I love the smell of coffee. It's the best. Like when I open a door to a Starbucks and step inside, that warm smell like enveloping me, I'm just like, oh. But I don't like the taste of it. And if anybody out there ever sees a plain coffee scented candle, not a hazelnut latte or a vanilla latte or a pumpkin spice latte, just a straight coffee scented candle, please buy it and I will pay you back, because I have never ever seen one. They always have flavoring added, and I just want straight coffee. Or I should probably just buy cheap coffee and like boil it in a pot on the stove, probably.
I remember my dad had a bread maker for a while, and he would try to make bread a lot of the times, and we just, it would be done in the morning, and most of the times it would have not risen. It would just be like this collapsed, like super dense, like concave loaf of bread, but we needed it anyway. But I do remember that smelled really good. Like that, the smell of baking bread is phenomenal.
It's hard to beat.
Yeah, I think mine would just be more of a scene, kind of like Eddie's isn't really a smell. Like when Susannah,
that's true.
When Susannah thinks about it, she's remembering all the smells associated with her father. But Eddie goes to a specific scene. And that's probably more what I would do. There's definitely a couple times in my life that I can think of where I have felt like, the moment was perfect, or, I just felt completely content. So I think that'd be more along the lines with me. But I also have a pretty, like, my memory isn't great either, like, in terms of my childhood. Like, my childhood, some people, it sounds like you, and I think from what I've heard you talk about your life before, you remember a lot of stuff about your youth pretty vividly. Am I wrong?
Definitely moments. Yeah.
Yeah. Like my childhood feels like it happened to somebody else. Like, and I saw a movie of it once, you know? Like, it's just, it's so, I feel so removed from it in a lot of ways that it's, and I'm sure that's probably not healthy, but.
Yeah, it's just like, without even assessing like the healthiness of it, I just wonder what would cause that, you know? Like, are you trying to distance yourself from it, do you think? Is it a conscious, like, mechanism?
Yeah, I think it was a coping mechanism for me, because I did, without going into any detail, I did some things during my late teens that I'm not proud of, and for which there were consequences, and I have basically spent the years since then trying to get away from being that person, and so. That, I think, is probably a big part of it, because, like, I really did remake myself in, like, particularly in my, like, mid to late 20s, like, right before...
Yeah, that's usually when that happens.
Like, right before I met you. You know, I just, like, completely decided to be a different person than I had been. So I think that's a big part of that reason.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. I never really stopped to think about that, but my memories of being a kid are most, like, I was thinking about it the other day, actually, that as a kid, I was super withdrawn. And I realize now that I was an observer. Like, I would watch people and find somebody that I admired in one way or another and watch them and figure out, why do I like this person? And I was very analytical about it, but I didn't participate in things. It wasn't until high school that I finally started to, like, apply what I had been, like, collecting in terms of information. 'Cause I would watch people that were really funny, and I would not make jokes myself. I would barely talk, but I would watch funny people and be like, okay, what exactly about that joke was so funny? Because if he said it this way, that wouldn't be funny. If he just changed that one word, or if he waited 2 seconds longer to deliver that line, I wouldn't have laughed like that. What makes that funny? And that's the kind of thing that I would spend a lot of time just, like, going over and over in my head. And it wasn't like it was an anxious thing, or that I was, like, so, like, self-conscious that I couldn't. That was just what I liked to do. And then at some point turned the corner, and I was like, well, I think I've got it. And just started to, like, shoot my mouth off completely.
Fair enough.
And then abruptly got slapped on my ass in my late 20s and reminded, no, you don't got it. You don't got it at all.
It's always fun when that happens.
Life.
Anyway.
So, back to the Rose. They get there, and everybody's super stoked to go up to it, except for Susannah. And she says it's almost the loveliest thing in the world, isn't it? And she strokes her belly as she says it and doesn't want to go near it, claiming that it's because she's barefoot and the place is full of broken glass. But Roland knows that it's probably Mia who doesn't want to go near it for some reason.
Can we also just talk for a second about the fact that when they're crossing the street, Roland holds up his head to an oncoming car and says, "Heil, stop in the name of Gilead."
Oh my God.
And they totally stop.
And I love that people are, like, stopping and stepping out of their way without seeming to notice they're there. So I can't help but wonder what the person who just slammed on the brakes
what do they see? Like,
is going to say to people.
Yeah.
Like, what do they say happened? That's an embarrassing thing. No, there was a guy. Did you not see the guy holding up his hand saying "Stop in the name of Gilead"? Did nobody else?
No, but no, really?
There was a squirrel. I just... Care to revise your statement, sir?
But anyway, yeah, Susannah will not go in there. And so she...
And there's a poem on the wall.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't like it.
No?
No.
Oh, Susannah Miho, divided girl of mine, done parked her rig in the Dixie Pig in the year of 99.
What the fuck is the Dixie Pig?
I mean,
that sounds really insulting.
How should I know?
Oh, should I know? That's what you sound like. You're an old snobby British lady who's wiping her pince-nez on her lace handkerchief.
I'm sure I can't be bothered with such things, darling. I don't know what it is. I suppose you'll just have to read on and find out without asking me any more silly questions, yes? No. No, I have no idea what the Dixie Pig is. None whatsoever. So, moving on from the things that I definitely don't know. We're gonna have to come up with that.
I finally got to use it.
We're gonna have to come up with a regular sound effect for me claiming that I definitely don't know something.
Guys, I've been using Zencaster to record instead of Skype lately.
Yeah, we just started.
Skype has been trash. And Zencaster has all these fucking loop sound effects that you can just play, and the person you're recording with can actually hear them in real time, and it gets like put into it's the best. And you can upload your own, so you know that's happening.
Oh, that's happening. Oh,
most definitely.
Boy. All right.
So Susannah stays with Oi.
Yep.
And then they go on without her, even though, like, Eddie's a little bit reluctant to do this, but he finally agrees, even though he's giving her a weird look. Like, he can tell something's up.
Yeah.
But, and there's this moment where she says, "Go see your rose, Roland, while you still can." Mm-hmm. And I don't like that line at all. Not a fan. And then this is when time jumps forward. She looks down. Her legs are gone.
Yep.
And there is a dead woman crossing the street.
Yup.
And Susannah starts to be like, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't have stayed here. Maybe this was a terrible idea.
This may have been poorly planned.
Right. And, like, she can walk on the stumps of her legs, but she can't climb over a fence. So she's stuck out there until they come back.
She is. They're all in the lot, going toward the road and seeing everybody from their past.
Yeah. And there's that sign still that Jake is pointing out, and it says Miles Construction and Sombra Real Estate Associates.
Mills Construction.
Oh, yeah. Ha, ha, ha.
I appreciate it, though. Sweet of you.
Mills Construction and Sombra Real Estate Associates are continuing to remake the face of Manhattan. Coming soon to this location, Turtle Bay Luxury Condominiums. Call 661-6712 for information. You will be so glad you did. And Jake is like, that number's not the same. And Eddie's like, yeah, I'm shocked. I wonder what they add up to. Who knows? It's a mystery. And there's a tag on it. Somebody graffitied on it. Bango Skank.
Bango Skank.
Which is just hysterically funny to me. I don't know why. Bango Skank. It sounds like something that, like, an Italian would say if he was trying to explain that he had a really good time and he thinks that he's, like, being complimentary, but he doesn't realize that skank is, like, a slur. So he's trying to be like, oh, this lovely lady showed me a great time. But he's, in fact, being, like, totally inappropriate.
Right.
Oh, this is a bango skank. I'm a Mario. And then in the spot next to where the rose was, there is something that Jake winds up grabbing up before they turn around and go back to Susannah a few seconds later. But right now they kneel down and the rose opens up and they look down into it. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, Susannah is seeing a dude with a giant Y incision in his gut. Like he had been, there was an autopsy done on him. And then there is a girl with a smashed head.
Yep.
And her eyes are smashed. It's really gross.
She's also starting to really wonder if what's happening to her is actually happening. Like, if she's starting to catch on to the fact that she's blacking out. Like, she's not always the one in control, and she's not fucking happy about it.
No.
And she loses some time right here as she thinks about it. And
yeah, she's just like, this isn't happening again. Please don't let this be happening again. And I just really felt for her in that moment.
Yeah, me too. Because it just doesn't feel right.
It doesn't feel fair.
No.
Yeah. Steven, thanks, you dick.
So yeah, she finally is like, you know what? There's so too many dead people around here, and Oi is barking at them, which means they're real. Eddie.
Right?
Yeah. And meanwhile, they are looking into the rose, and Eddie is seeing, as King puts it, great things and near misses. Albert Einstein as a child, not quite struck by a runaway milk wagon as he crossed the street. A teenage boy named Albert Schweitzer getting out of a bathtub and not quite stepping on the cake of soap lying beside the pulled plug. A Nazi Oberlieutenant burning a piece of paper with a date and place of the D-Day invasion written on it. I wonder how much of this is bullshit and how much he actually researched.
Yeah, I have no idea. I guess it's I feel like it's just all got to be made up, right?
I feel like it's all made up, but it's mundane enough that it's probably true. Because everybody has these, I
mean, but who remembers the moment where they almost did something that killed them, but it was so unremarkable that they didn't,
well,
and
nobody.
then tells it to another person and it goes down in history. It's got to just be made up.
Yeah, I think that's the point, though. Is he's making it up.
Okay,
he's making it up, but it feels authentic because it's perfectly rational to assume that that somewhere there was a milk wagon that almost ran over Albert Einstein. I like the Nazi lieutenant burning the Oberlieutenant, whatever, burning a piece of paper with a date and place of the D-Day invasion written on it. That's poignant to me.
Yeah, that's fair.
But yeah, it's all moments of grace. There's a terrorist who turns away from a crowd and decides not to blow people up because he got transfixed by something by the sky, and there's a man who died of a heart attack on his way to poison the Denver water supply. It also says he saw 4 men rescue a little boy from a monster whose entire head seemed to consist of a single eye, which I think... Is that Jake? Is that... Because there weren't 4 of them, though. So that just must be what the fuck? This is a thing.
You mean the muties?
No, I meant the monster in the house. But when he was coming over. But that doesn't make sense. And I don't know,
yeah,
just a random detail thrown in there. Monster, his head's an eye,
Yeah, it's weird that's kind of treated as if it's on par with everything else that he's seeing. But I couldn't figure that out. I felt like he just had to be misinterpreting what he was seeing. That it was just maybe a machine or something, and he was mistakenly thinking. But
I don't know. I don't want.
I'm trying to think about what he saw when he was in Lud, and if there was something there. But
yeah,
I don't know.
I don't want to go all House of the Undying on this shit. So,
Yeah, that's fair.
Who needs that in their life? And he sees a bunch of different things that have happened to them over the course of their adventures, which also makes me think it's not them because, he recognizes himself in these visions that he's having.
Right.
And it says, for every brick that landed on the ground instead of some little kid's head, for every tornado that missed the trailer park, for every missile that didn't fly, for every hand stayed from violence, there was the tower. And Roland says that there are two hubs of existence, the tower and the rose, yet they are the same. But there's something wrong with the rose. There's something inside that doesn't belong there, and that's, corrupting it.
Yeah, there's, a weird purplish light.
Mm-hmm.
And that light is even, reflected up onto Jake's face when he's talking. And, yeah, it's just sort of just a flicker that something isn't right,
Yeah. And Roland is like, we have to have this land, we have to own it, and we have to protect this rose, because what he says, while the tower weakens, this is what holds everything together, and this is weakening too.
Yeah.
And that is when the...
Yeah, don't like that.
Yeah, no. That's, world fall apart
this whole thing.
Stuff.
I really liked this moments of grace, as you put it, though. This is actually, it reminded me a lot of a Facebook post that I made a few days ago, because things get really bad. I mean, just in life, but especially over the past couple of years, things have felt so dark, and there are still moments of beauty like this, but it's so hard to keep them in mind or even find them when all people are talking about, understandably, it's not a criticism, but all we are talking about are the terrible things that are going on because we're concerned, obviously. It's not like it's unreasonable for us to be doing that.
Sure.
But there is, the example that I used in the post that I made, because I was trying to just express that there is still light in the world. And as much as the terrible, injustices and bigotry and everything, all of that darkness feels powerful and insurmountable. It takes so much more darkness to drown out light. Light, just a tiny bit of it. One candle in a dark room, it's a complete difference. It's just the one candle, but that is all you need, and you can find your way around. And if you have 7 or 8 of those candles, then you're good. You're done. And yet there's a whole room full of dark.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine who has some disabled children was about to get evicted from her house, and a group of neighbors just showed up at her door with $2,400 in an envelope and just gave it to her.
Yeah.
To fix, just that kind of thing that, that's a small thing. That's not making the news. But knowing that there are people doing that kind of thing, that is what keeps you remembering that it's not all terrible.
Yeah. All
the time.
And I think it's really important to remember that there are those lights, always in the world. And I think it's important to remember that there are those lights in every person, regardless of the the shit they believe, or their ignorance or their stupidity or their cruelty. It's in everybody. It's just buried a little deeper in some people.
It's just really, I wish so much that it was possible to keep that in mind to the degree that you really believe it in your bones, because when things get bad, it just drowns it sometimes. And I wish there was a way to preserve that feeling and be able to call it back up when you need to, which I guess is sort of what like the idea of a Patronus is.
Yeah,
that one moment that really just like is joy, pure joy, and being able to bring that up to comfort yourself when you need it.
Yeah, I can see that. I don't know. I think it's without going too far into the weeds here. I think that it's a thing that gets lost more frequently online. You know?
Definitely.
That goodness in people. There's a really great podcast that I've been listening to lately, which is by the same people who do Welcome to Night Vale, and it's called Conversations with People Who Hate Me. And it's this journalist, this super liberal journalist who's written a lot of really cool stuff, having on-air conversations, like calling up people who have called him horrible things in comments, and like talking to them about it. And the conversations are like, they are surprisingly civil. Because when you get somebody one-on-one and you're like, hey, let's have a chat about this, like they're not going to say those things to you, because that's not how one functions in society. That's not how you interact with a person. And like pretty much everyone understands that on some level. So I don't know. It's fascinating. I've been really enjoying that show. But yeah. It's, the rose, man, the rose. So I'm just saying, like, it's a big deal.
So they hear her screaming, and they reluctantly tear themselves away. And Roland says to himself, "I'll come back," but he's afraid, like that's just not happening. They might not be able to. They might not be able to protect this thing.
Yeah.
And when they go back out there, I almost was like bummed out, because it turns out that these are, as Roland calls them, the vagrant dead. And it's kind of a thing like that is just sort of a matter of course. Like, this isn't a big deal, and it wasn't really necessarily worth tearing them away from looking at the rose for.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and yeah, Roland says, I heard of them from Elaine John's father. It must have been not long after we returned from Mages, for after that there wasn't much more time before everything. What is it you say, Susannah? Before everything went to hell in a handbasket. In any case, it was Burning Chris who warned us that if we ever went Todash, we might see Vags. Such as him yonder have either died so suddenly they don't yet understand what's happened to them, or they simply refuse to accept it. Sooner or later, they do go on. I don't think there are many of them. So, yeah, this is rough.
I guess
this little girl with the smashed head, like, yikes.
It's like hearing me like, oh yeah, those Vags over there. It kind of rubs me the wrong way. I don't know. But
right?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. You know, between that and the pubes that are fighting in...
The pubes and the Vags constantly at war.
I don't... Not a big fan, guys. Not a big fan.
Anyway, so Susannah reveals that she lost some time.
Yep.
And they're talking. They basically start talking about, you know, how they need to protect the rose, and like, because as soon as they go back, time starts moving faster. So they need to do it as quickly as possible, and they have to get back to Susannah's time to get her money so they can do it. And Susannah asks Roland if Black 13 will work like a door. And he thinks to himself, what it will work is mischief. Mischief and worse.
Thanks for nothing, Roland.
Yeah. But then they start going back.
Yep.
The Todash chimes begin.
Yeah, which is like such a weird thing, because they're like painful but also super beautiful when they hear them.
Yeah.
And Jake, it turns out, has picked up this bag that looks like his old bowling bag that he used to have. And it used to say nothing but strikes at Midtown Lanes, but now it says at Midworld Lanes. And,
like.
a bowling bag might just happen to be the perfect mechanism for carrying, say, a black ball of doom. So,
Susannah,
I think we picked that up.
Yeah, Susannah notices that it feels like a metal weave. And it's heavy. So yeah, I mean, to put a fucking bowling orb in it.
I think it's probably like lined with like asbestos or something. Like it's really heavy duty, made especially for this friggin' doom ball.
Doom ball.
Sounds like you're again an Italian guy who's insulting somebody.
Hey.
Look at this doom ball.
Hey, doom ball. Where are you going?
Oh, I'm walking here.
I'm walking it. I guess.
Now he's from Brooklyn.
I guess I would be remiss to the Smash Fiction fans listening if I didn't at this point say Doom. But that's all right. Because
I don't know what that is.
Doom,
but I believe you.
Doom, Natasha.
But you said it like damn.
But one must pay homage to Doom.
I don't know what that means.
Doctor Doom from Marvel Comics.
Oh.
Anyway.
Oh, okay.
Just listen to the Smash Fiction podcast more often. You would understand that. See, now I know you don't listen to my shit, Natasha. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm sorry. I don't listen to my own shit. I don't listen to anything anymore.
I know, right? Who has time? Sometimes we'll be recording and somebody will say something and they'll be like, yeah, that's an inside joke. I'm like, was it? I don't remember that.
Yeah, I have people all the time like texting me out of context on Twitter and being like, quoting me. And I'm like, I said that? And sometimes it's from years ago. So it's like I have an excuse to not remember. But sometimes it's from last week. And I'm like, oh, whoops. There are good times, though, when somebody will mention something I said and me hearing my own joke secondhand cracks me up. And I realized that I made a really... Owen was like cleaning and I didn't realize that he was listening to the Harry Potter episode.
Yeah.
And he started cracking up and I didn't know he was even listening to it. I'm like, what's so funny? And he's like, oh my God, you're doing the reread and Harry's at Ollivander's shop and Ollivander tells Harry about having the same wand as Voldemort. And you just said, I mean, it's like somebody going, you've got like the same fingerprints as Hitler, but no big deal. It's like, I totally forgot I even said that when you said it back to me. I could not stop laughing. I was like, oh, that was a good one. Good job, me. Podcasting is weird, is what I'm saying, guys.
That's so strange thing. And they get back and they all go to sleep, except for, and Susannah goes to sleep for a while until Mia comes out and eats for two.
I hate it.
And that is...
If she fucking eats Oi, I will be so upset. Don't eat Oi, Mia. Don't do it. I'm really, like... I want Oi to be, like, the one that gets out alive. Everybody else can die.
It will be like in...
Oi needs to survive.
It'll be like in Cube. You ever see Cube?
What's Cube?
It's a movie.
No. Is that a movie?
Yeah.
Is that the one with Jennifer Lopez?
No, that's the Cell.
No, that's Cell.
No, Cube is like a kind of cult classic horror film. I won't ruin it for you by telling you who makes it out alive, but it's not probably the person you were expecting. So,
okay.
Anyway.
Well, I want to say hi to patrons real quick. And then I will let you tell them about some of your projects, sir.
Real quick, before you do that, let's just say that's the end of part 1. And then, so in 2 weeks, we'll start part 2, Telling Tales, and I think we'll just once again cover the one chapter, because it's another long one. It's called The Pavilion, and I am super excited about what you think about this chapter. So I'm looking forward to this.
Oh, okay. Interesting. All right, so new patrons. Anton! What's up, Anton?
Anton?
Yeah, Anton became a patron because I think he wants to listen to the Game of Thrones episodes.
Oh, that makes sense. I name dropped you, buddy.
Right. Tommy, Lauren Vogt, Devin Matthews, Brandy Brown, Samantha Androsco, David McNiff, Brock 300, Sarah Reentz, Judy ? Which I kind of like. It's instead of just leaving the last name blank, she put a question mark, so it says Judy. And Catherine Ross all became patrons over the past 2 weeks. So welcome to all of you guys. Thank you so much for becoming patrons.
Personally, I want to.
I'm working on a.
I want to be Brock 300 when I grow up. That's just. That sounds like my kind of guy. Brock 300.
I'm working on another reward for like a certain patron level because, or a certain number of patrons, because I had a reward for reaching 429, which was watching all 3 Godfather movies, but I couldn't think what to do next. I did do that, and me and Rashawn covered it. So that's for patrons only. So if you're a patron, you should check that out. It's on the website and on Patreon. But if you are wondering what the next one's going to be, I think I'm going to do Birdemic. Yeah, that is the appropriate reaction to have. Birdemic has like basically been named one of like the top 5 worst movies ever made. Behind the Room, behind probably, oh my God, what is it called? The one with Neil Breen. Oh, it's so bad. Fateful Findings. Have you ever seen Fateful Findings, Miles? Have I made you watch any clips from Fateful Findings? Holy shit. Holy shit, Miles. I'm about to send you 2 Fateful Findings clips that you are going to have to watch as soon as we're done.
Oh boy.
Because if you think that other movies are terrible, Fateful Findings is the kind of bad that it makes you think that this person can't possibly have ever seen a movie before. Like that there's just no possible way that you make a movie that looks like this, where people act like this, and you know what a movie is or how human beings behave. It's baffling. And I wish that I hadn't already seen it, because I would love to cover this, but unfortunately I have. And I just don't know that I could make somebody else sit through it.
Oh, man.
Like, and do that to them. Like, it's pretty bad.
I mean, there's a host of other bad ones to choose from.
Birdemic is like one that I think that's going to be the one.
Yeah.
It's just, I've heard a lot about it. I haven't seen it. And Godfather, I felt like I had to pay attention and, really like get into it, but it'd be fun to have something that I feel like I can just watch and kind of like get drunk and not need to be analytical about it.
Hey. Insensitive much? Jeez.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. I keep forgetting that Miles is alcoholically disabled at the moment.
Alcoholically disabled. Oh, that's
makes it
my
sound like
favorite
you're
thing.
like so drunk you can't stand, but
it's the opposite.
He's too sober.
Yeah, I'm far too sober right now.
So yeah, that's what I think I'm going to do. And reminder to everybody that we're going to be doing the meetup in November in Orlando, and I'm really excited about it. And I'm actually, today I spent a bunch of time like getting in touch with the hotel to try and find out how I can reserve some conference room space so that we can do the live recording. Because what we're going to do, me and Rashawn, is watch the first Harry Potter movie overlaid with the Wizard People, Dear Readers, commentary. Which, if you are a Harry Potter fan and you have not listened to Wizard People, Dear Readers, it is one of the best things that's ever happened. And I can't wait, because Rashawn is going to just... You know how easy it is to make Rashawn laugh.
It's pretty easy.
I mean, she's going to lose her mind. So, yeah. So that's what's going on.
When is
so,
that
Miles, take it away.
Again?
The live recording is going to be on Saturday, December 2nd in Orlando. And the meetup starts on November 29th is going to be the day that we go to Wizarding World the first time.
Oh, man. I'm going to be at the Thanksgiving thing, I think, for that.
Boo.
But I probably couldn't go anyway because I'm already having to take a trip because I'm going to be in the second weekend of December. I'm going to be in Seattle for PodCon. Are you not going to PodCon?
No.
Oh.
Why are you saying it like I would go to... Dude. I don't go to anything. I don't have the money to travel, man.
I know, neither do I. I was just fucking
The only reason that I'm able to like go to Orlando is because somebody bought me my fucking plane ticket. Like people who are fans of my show are insane.
It's all right.
And buy me things.
It's all right. And, I will represent...
You know,
I'll proudly represent Unspoiled at PodCon. It's all right. I would rather be in
Orlando.
But
I do think I'm going to be participating in the Philly Podcast Festival next year. So that'll be cool.
All right.
So
well, that sounds fun.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see about when that's happening. But
well,
all right, go ahead.
The other reason that I'm going to PodCon is to represent my other podcasts. Well, one of my other podcasts. The main one is called Smash Fiction. If you're not already familiar with Smash Fiction, you can get familiar with it on iTunes or on Libsyn at smashfiction.libsyn.com. And, or on, social media and shit. Twitter, at SmashFic Podcast, Facebook, email. And also Tumblr.
Email.
Also Tumblr.
What are you, an old man?
Yes. Smash Fiction is the show where we take two or more fictional characters, I should say, and put them in some kind of conflict with one another to determine who is the best at whatever it is they are best at doing. We had Rashawn on very recently, and it's strange because we had Rashawn on the Granny Weatherwax versus Minerva McGonagall episode, and that episode's like really popular for some reason. I can't really imagine why that might be. But yeah, Rashawn was on. She was great. It was a great witch battle between Weatherwax and McGonagall. That came out a couple weeks ago. More recently, the most recent episode of Extraordinary League came out. Hey, what? Most recently, the most recent episode of our recent podcast, Extraordinarily Recent League, is the name of the show. Oh, God. I really like bad at plugs being my gimmick. I'm really okay with this. Anyway, Extraordinary League is the actual play RPG that we come out with once a month in lieu of a regular episode. So the most recent one of those just came out. And we have a Patreon, too. You can check us out at patreon.com/smashfictionpodcast. And we have a lot of cool perks. People get to vote on like the matches we do. And each of us every month provides bonus content. Like, not each of us every month, but like every month one of us provides bonus content for our Patreon fans. It's actually my month this month in August. So I'm going to be doing a rant or an argument with somebody about something that I hate. And I get to talk for an undetermined length of time about something that I hate. And it's available only
Can I make a special request?
What is it?
Can you rant about avocado buns?
Well, Natasha, were you a patron, you would be able to vote on what I ranted about. But since you're not...
Oh, shit.
Since you're not, you don't get to vote. You don't. Get
I love how he says that like he's a patron of mine because he ain't.
I totally am not. We're both broke. We understand each other. But yeah. So check that out. God, I totally lost my train of thought. Anyway, so yeah, become a patron at patreon.com/smashfictionpodcast. And check us out everywhere you get your podcasts online. You can also check out the Odyssey Storytelling Podcast, which is the show that I produce and host for Odyssey Storytelling Group, which is a group here in Tucson, and they do monthly live shows where regular people tell stories, like 10-minute stories related to a theme. So this month it was Emergency. And that was really fun. We almost had an emergency during recording, which I thought was pretty ironic because they had their their setup all wonky, and I had to kind of go on the fly to record the podcast, but it got done. It went out, and you can listen to it right now on the Odyssey Storytelling Podcast, also on iTunes and anywhere you get your podcasts. And once again, feel free to check out universesofthemind.com to update yourself on how long it's been since I put up a blog post there. So that's Universes of the Mind, my science fiction website that has not been updated in a very long time and will hopefully be updated soon. Universesofthemind.com. That's a hard sell for you right there.
Wow.
Oh, and also Game of Thrones podcast for patrons only on this network.
Oh yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Guys, it's fun. It's a good time.
Yeah, it's a really good time. Because I don't know anything about this shit, and they just and you guys have been really good at fooling me lately. It's pissing me off. I have to up my game.
I know.
I have to up my game.
I have sort of figured out what it is that makes you believe certain things. For those of you who do not understand what we're talking about, Miles doesn't watch Game of Thrones. So Rashawn and I create multiple choice questions that he has to choose between to guess what actually happened within the episode. And a lot of times he guesses wrong. He was really good in season 6 on guessing right, but I think, kind of cracked the code, and now he is right much less often.
I was good in the first episode of season 7 at guessing right, and then you changed your game, you upped your game, and now I have to respond in kind, and I probably will not.
Yeah, and special thanks to Money, because he's been helping me with a lot of questions too, and it's super nice to not have to come up with everything myself, so always appreciate that. So yeah, I think that's everything. Are you good, sir?
I'm good. Let's close it out.
All right. Well, guys, you know where to find us. Facebook.com/unspoiledpod, Twitter @unspoiledshow, Instagram @unspoiledpodcast, and you can follow me on Twitter @NatashaWriting, where I tweet very infrequently and mostly about politics, so enjoy that. All right, guys.
See you in 2 weeks.
We will see you in 2 weeks with a new chapter. Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.